At this time, I would like to call to order the November 24th, 2025 meeting of the Hartford Joint One School District Board of Education. Can I have a roll call, please? Ms. Linder? Here. Ms. Strong? Present. Ms. Welch? I'm here. Mr. Gronbeck, excused, Mr. President's absent. Thank you, Ms. Hoffman. This is a meeting of the Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting the district's business, and it is not to be considered a public community meeting. There is a time for public participation during the meeting as indicated in the agenda. Any district resident or parent of a currently enrolled student wishing to speak should have filled out a card located on the sign-in table and given it to the board secretary. At this time, we're going to do the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'm going to pass it over to Dr. Bowie to introduce our group from Rossman.
Yep, so we have our school counselor, Ms. Krieger, here, and she'll introduce our leadership students.
So I'm Krieger, school counselor at Rossman, and have some of our leadership students with us today, Riley Paulson, Madison Collier, and Artie Beckley to lead us in the pledge.
And to the republic for which it stands, nation under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Good job, guys. Thanks for being here. Good job.
Thank you, guys.
Good job. Thanks for being here.
Great job. Thanks. Love all the conversations. Here. Strawberry. Thank you to the students for coming and for their parents for helping to get them here, and Ms. Krieger and Dr. Bowie for introducing them. Our next item is to consider the approval of the agenda. The agenda notes the board's mission of we will support our community through dedicated governance, leadership, and stewardship so that our students achieve. It also states our values and expectations as a board in governing our meetings. The purpose of the agenda approval is twofold. The first reason is to verify that public notice has been given according to state statute 19.84. Ms. Hoffman, has the meeting been properly noticed? Yes. Thank you. The second reason for approval of the agenda is to consider tabling an item or to rearrange the order of events. Is there any request or need to do that? Seeing none, is there a motion?
I move to approve the agenda.
I second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 4 is our presentation of student excellence, which is also from Rossman Elementary School tonight. And so I'm going to pass it over to Dr. Bowie again, or to Mrs. Klein, whomever.
Oh, sorry, we're just having a little. Yeah, so thank you very much.
Yes.
Good evening. So we have Mrs. Klein, Mrs. Anderson, and the third graders, McKenna Calvert, Craig Fisher, Mackenzie Hoffman, Brady Hickola, Emma Hoglin, and Amanda Lazama presenting the seat. They could come on up. Yeah, they can come on up.
I don't think where would you prefer them facing, you guys or the crowd?
Can they stand on the side and arc around? Is that okay?
Yep, okay.
There you go.
Okay, so recently our third graders enjoyed a read aloud titled Balloons Over Broadway, which is part of our reading curriculum. In writing, we have also been conducting research for our informational pieces. To put our research skills into practice, we researched the history of the Macy's Day Parade. Finally, to celebrate our learning, we even created our own Macy's Day Parade style paper balloons, now proudly displayed in our third grade hallway at Rossman.
This Balloons Over Broadway presentation delves into the enchanting world of giant balloons and their role in the iconic Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. This journey highlights the creativity, artistry, and history behind these whimsical creations, showcasing why they have become a cherished part of American tradition during Thanksgiving celebration. All right, we're going to let some of our students share with you some of the research that they did on the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade.
The Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade started in 1924. A lot of employees and paid actors were in the first Macy's parade. The point of the Macy's Thanksgiving Parade was to be a fun Thanksgiving tradition in New York. The person who created the Macy's Thanksgiving Parade was named Tony Sarg. The first Macy's parade to be broadcasted on television was in 1948. Many people watch or go to the Macy's parade today. When Tony Starch grew up, he moved to London, where he discovered no one was making marionettes for kids anymore. In the heart of New York City, in Herald Square, was the biggest store on earth, Macy's department store. Macy's heard about Tony's puppets, so they asked him to design a puppet parade for the store's windows. Tony made new puppets based on storybook characters, then attached gears and pulleys to make them move. Next, in the Macy's Wondertown windows, Tony's mechanical puppets dance across the stage like magic. But Macy's had an even bigger job for Tony. Many of the people were working at Macy's were immigrants, and as the holidays approached, they missed their own holiday tradition at the dancing with music in the streets. Macy's agreed to put on a parade for their employees and hired Tony to help. Tony was an immigrant too, so he loved the idea of creating a parade. Then they made costumes and built horse-drawn boats and camels from the Central Park Zoo. And Macy's even arranged to bring bears, lions, and elephants. Each year, the parade grew, but kids were getting scared of the roars from the lions and the growls of the bears. So Macy's asked Tony to replace the animals. So then he thought of blimps. So he asked the company to make him balloons. And they said yes. The Macy's Day Parade has been going on since November 27th, 1924. Have you ever wondered about the history of the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade? Tony Sarge was the person who created the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade in 1924. The purpose of the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade is the employees of Macy's were immigrants and missed their own holiday traditions, so Macy's wanted to give them a new tradition. The parade is held in New York, and the day is on Thanksgiving Day. Today, you can see many popular characters float down, like Pikachu, Sonic, and Spider. Do you know what the Macy's Day Parade is? It's on Thanksgiving, and it's how people get started with celebrating their Thanksgiving. It also was created by the Macy's department store. They hired Tony Sarge to make the puppet balloons. Also, did you know Snoopy is the most popular balloon? He was in 7 Macy's Day parades in a row. The first Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade was in 1924 in New York to honor immigrants and their families. When Macy's didn't want to get real animals because it was scaring the kids, they hired Tony Sarg because he made puppets. Felix the Cat was the first balloon showcased. When it first started in 1932, the balloons weren't inflated, and If the balloons were returned, they would get a present from Macy's. One time, a balloon got stuck on an airplane wing. Snoopy was the most famous balloon and has been featured since 1968. Did you know the parade was created in 1924, morning of Thanksgiving? The person who created the parade was Tony Sarge. They put on a parade for the employees. The parade was to celebrate Thanksgiving. The first balloon was Felix the cat. Also, the parade was such a big hit, they decided to do it every year. The parade has been on TV since 1942.
So we have our 3 third grade classes. This is Mrs. Schrader's class, kind of showing off our balloons in our hallway. Mrs. Anderson's class. And then this is my class. Here it all is kind of in pieces, but it's spans across right the entrance of our 3rd grade hall. And so here's a few pictures. We have about 70 of them in our hallway. So if you have the chance to come on over and visit, come visit. This is the time to see it. And then here's the other 2 parts of the wall. And we tried to put our duplicates next to each other because it was fun to see how the kids interpreted the drawing and were able to do it like similar but different in their own way. To wrap it up, did you know there are about 46 million turkeys eaten in the United States each year for Thanksgiving? That's a lot of turkey. Thanks for having us. Was there a most popular balloon that you guys drew that was repeated most often by the students? It wasn't Snoopy, because that was
At least SpongeBob, maybe 3 or 4 of them.
okay.
A lot of Marvel characters.
Okay.
Disney characters. Yeah.
Great job, you guys.
Any other questions?
I don't think so.
Well, then we'll go at it. Good job. Good job. Thanks for being.
Great job, honey.
Good
Thank
job.
you so much. Thank you
Good
so
reading.
much.
Good job.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for being.
Really like.
Nice work.
Thank you so much, buddy.
Excellent job. That was great. Excellent.
So. I need to be. Thank you so much.
That 1 year, and mom only wants to be in the book. I started with Sarah trying to ask people. So she is good. Okay, very good. Love it. Thank you. Fun. Learn some things about.
You know, and the first time I was like, oh, it's like, it's not something.
And not a real person, but
Maybe not a parent.
Thank you again to all the kiddos who presented and all the parents and teachers who brought them. Thank you all.
Thank you. Great evening.
You're welcome.
Too late.
Yeah, I should have said that earlier. With that. Need to find some way to fill this. All right, item number 5 is our citizens delegation to be heard. Mrs. Topham, was there anyone who filled out as far as you know? And that brings us to the board president's report. And so the only thing I have tonight to discuss is that last month we sent a link with the school board development tool, which was that survey. 80% of the board as of tonight has filled out that survey. So if you have not filled out that survey, it is not too late. We would like that done because next month, Mrs. Hoffman will print out all of the results from that. I will say that there were some questions I found weird because it's supposed to be from the perspective of the board, but some of the questions really seemed to be about how the administration or the district is doing. But what I would recommend is just fill it out to the best of your ability. It is a tool, it's not perfect, and then we can have great conversational quiz next month. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Remote. Oh yeah, go ahead.
I think you had a chance to talk to the mine shaft about sponsoring our scoreboards.
No, I have not, but I do think that there's already some sponsorships that the district has to go through first as far as the sports goes at the middle school. So that's something that we'll have to kind of go through with Mr. Stevens, I think, a little bit more before we would reach out to other businesses, because there's some.
Correct, and that's something that administration would handle, not necessarily the school directly. So I know Mr. McGarris has been working on that.
Yeah. Okay, we're gonna pass it over to Dr. Villalobos for the district administrator's report.
Okay, thank you. Very first report that I have is we had 3 absolutely beautiful Veterans Day programs in all 3 buildings. I'm looking right at Mr. Flynn. He was a key player in the Central Middle School program. He was one of the narrators, so great job. But the kids were outstanding. And what I love the most is you can't say this is the format for a Veterans Day program. All 3 buildings have their own format. And all 3 programs are just exceptional. So it was wonderful and I enjoyed being at all 3. It was fantastic. The next update that I have is that annually we have been fortunate enough to be the recipients of a donation at Lincoln Elementary School. That donor does choose to remain anonymous. However, the amount that they have chosen to donate does need to come to the board just for acknowledgement. And so I'm bringing it to you to share with you today that a local business is sponsoring the building so that way they can help with any books, winter clothing items, things like that that are items of need for our students. So we're very grateful and we will send a letter of recognition to that donor. It's just that they want to remain anonymous publicly. DPI, special education self-assessment. I'll actually turn it over to Ms. Houston shortly, but this is something that happens to all school districts. It's part of a rotation. And so it actually started last year with Ms. Keneally before she left. And so Ms. Eason just wanted to share with you where we're at in the process and what's coming. So I'll turn it over to you.
So this is DPI's cycle of self-assessment to ensure compliance on IEPs and really setting results for students. So it comes in 3 parts. The first part was a parent survey that was done in the spring of last year. And so they look for about 10% response rate, which we met. We got to that number. The results were shared in your board packet. Some really huge highlights. They looked at whether or not parents feel like they're welcomed into school or IEP meetings. There are areas that we have that we can beef up. I think probably things that we talk about a lot are making parent-friendly language in a world where we have a lot of acronyms and things can be really confusing about process and procedures. But I would say even that 75% of our parents felt like we were doing a good job there. So I think that there's always places that we can tweak in terms of that parent and IEP process. But by and large, everybody was very, had very good things to say about that process. The second part is initial evaluation. So when we get a referral for a student, we are operating under a certain set of timelines to make sure that happens. And so that's something that happens every year, looking at whether or not we're meeting those deadlines, and that information will come with our December count snapshot. So stay tuned on that one. The last one is the self-assessment. So DPI randomly pulls some of our IEPs. We are tasked with putting together an ad hoc committee and reviewing those on a certain, they give us checklists of items, so very specific points that we're looking for. So we had a group of 8 people come in summer. We do some learning together about what the standards are and what DPI, what we're looking for in terms of compliance. It really affords us the opportunity to talk a lot about best practice too, because some things we can be compliant on, but we can still do better. And so it's a really nice conversation about what meets the standards and how can we make it better. So we spent the day going through 23 IEPs and we were at a 90% compliance rate. We did really great. I'm super happy with how things went. I think that the conversations that were had among the teams of people about how we can improve process and procedure were really valuable, and then have come back to the teams at the building level. So what comes next is on anything that we were not compliant on, any specific checklist item, those IEPs will be reviewed and revised. We're talking to families about those, and then there will be learning that is happening now through, well, it will continue, but for sure all of our corrective actions have to be done by January 15th. So some department meetings, some memorandums, just outlining some of the things that we can continue to improve. And then DPI will come again in the spring and do another full of evaluations just to do a spot check on these. So you will hear more from me at the end of the year after we go through that again. Questions about that process?
No, I said to Dr. Villalobos, this is the first time I remember seeing this kind of reporting, and she explained it doesn't happen. It's not on a certain cadence. But it's really interesting information, and it was nice to see all of the percentages where they were. So I appreciated reading it.
Can you also remind me, once a child's on an IEP, they're on it the whole time forever, or how do you learn, or what are the metrics for someone getting off of it? Because I know that we have a lot of IEPs, which is not a bad thing, but because then kids can need the support, they need the support. But I was just wondering, how does that, when they get close to that level, like how do you graduate them?
Yep. So the goals that are set by the team have to be reviewed annually. And at least every 3 years, then the team comes together again to look at that eligibility area to say, do we need to sit down, or you have to sit down and determine whether or not they would continue to meet eligibility requirements, or has it perhaps changed as kids get older, as they age out? There's more of a generic significant developmental delay. You can't live in that land forever. You have to name the thing at some point. So every 3 years at least, if things are going really well, like we can say, I think it's time that we reevaluate and maybe consider dismissal. So that it happens more frequently than 3 years, but at least.
Thank you, Ms. Easton. The next thing that I wanted to share is just a very brief update about Fund 46. So as you know, we have now had all 3 of our ribbon cutting ceremonies in each building, finalizing the ribbon cuttings very recently with Lincoln's. And so that means all of the bills are coming in, they're making their way over to Mr. Majerus's office. And so next month, he will be reviewing with the school board the facilities audit that was done recently right when we started the discussion about the referendum. And he will be sharing information about what did that audit look like, what were the projects that we, checked off of that list through the referendum, what's still remaining, what the priority looks like in terms of what's left over, and then where the funding or the spending is at, so we know how much money we have to kind of reinvest back into the Fund 46 projects. So that will be something that he'll be discussing next month. So if you do have any questions, or if you're looking for anything specific, please let me know so that way I can convey that information. Please remember that with winter break, the next meeting is early. It's coming up on December 15th. So we really have a very short turnaround. So I don't want to be giving him information on February, or yeah, definitely not in February. That would be late. But not on December 11th or 12th. Okay. And then the other part of my update is around legislative information. So there's a lot that has been going on. Last week, if you were watching the news, Trump announced that he is beginning the process to dismantle the Department of Education at the federal level. That is a department that has not always been there. It started in 1979 with President Carter. The main roles include administering college loans, tracking student achievement, enforcing civil rights in school, and then of course providing some of our funding, which you've heard Mr. Majerus talk about at every annual meeting that we have. What the Department of Ed at the federal level does not do is control our specific school operations like curriculum and staffing, things like that. And so this is an attempt or a hope to streamline federal education activities. And so right now that we have limited information, but I'm staying, current with WASA and then at our CESA meetings to determine what's coming, what's next, and how does that impact us. So that's something that several of us have been monitoring just because it impacts each of us in a different way. Then I wanted to share a couple of bills with you. So Assembly Bill 613 and 614, if you see these coming through, this is about behavior in school and then reporting. I don't anticipate these 2 bills going forward because there are a lot of concerns about student confidentiality. with FERPA. And so this is something that I don't expect would go through, but if you're hearing about it, I think the intent behind it was good. I just think that it's not going, it conflicts with the federal law. Assembly Bill 129 is about water. So I actually spoke to Mr. Carroll about it a couple of weeks ago. This is one I do anticipate will pass. And it's about making sure that our students, staff, and visitors have access to clean water. And the bill specifically talks about the water filling stations per number of students in the building. And so we are already sufficient. So if this does pass, we will not need to do anything. So know that. The next one is Senate Bill 327. It's about service animals. This is something that I do anticipate passing, but don't know for sure yet. And then there is a suite of consolidation bills that are out there. This is something that I was part of the Committee of Shared Services for the state of Wisconsin back in 2022. So I've spoken on several of these bills to two reporters, one that's out of Madison, Kate Morton from Wiz Politics, and then Evie Blad is more at the national level with Education Week. And so this is something that the bills themselves, I think, push us in the correct direction. This is where the 2022 committee was headed, and they have the funding this time to back it up. And that would be if all of the bills are passed and go together, and not that we pick and choose what bills for consolidation work. The other thing that's really important to note, and I shared this with both of the journalists that I spoke to, is that all of the information that I've heard is that, again, this is helping districts determine if consolidation is right for them, not forced consolidation. And that is a critical understanding, is that forced consolidation does not work. So those, again, it's a suite of bills, so I won't talk about them specifically. The big one that I wanted to talk about is Act 42. I did send the school board an update of that a couple of weeks ago. Shared information with you then. I have spoken to Neola, I've spoken to our WASD group, and then also CISA. So the new cell phone policy requirement, I will say what I said previously, it does not change a whole lot for our school district. We already have this policy in place. The big thing, or the big changes that we will need to talk about, is the caveat for teachers allowing cell phone usage in classrooms. That will be part of the AG, most likely, the administrative guideline, not the policy itself. And Wisconsin is not the first to do this. Wisconsin is the 37th state in the country to adopt a law of this type. So we have a lot of people who are in front of us. So we will be working on that, and we have plenty of time. When I spoke to Neola, they were aware of the adoption. They have it in their next rotation. And for us as a district, we don't have to have anything turned in to DPI until October 1st of 2026. So again, we have ample time, and then that will be an annual report to DPI, something that we need to continue to turn in. So that will be I would call it an unfunded mandate, because it will add continued work for us to make sure that we're submitting any changes or anything, any modifications year over year. So that is the information about the cell phone policy. And then the last thing that I wanted to share is there's an assembly bill. It's Assembly Bill 460. It is about school choice and about pupils' eligibility. When I was talking to those of you during your pre-board meeting, I kind of related this to open enrollment, and how with our open enrollment policy, we share that if we have a sibling, you're moved up on the list where it's more likely that you're going to get in. If we have a sibling who's a student, you will more likely get in. So this is the similar type of bill that the Assembly has put out. So that was part of the district update. And then if I move on to board updates, we have 3 people up for board elections this year. Mr. Pridemore, Ms. Wilk, and Mr. Gronbeck are all up for election. That is very atypical, because usually it's 1 or 2 people each year. The reason we have 3 is because Mr. Gronbeck was serving out the remainder of Ed Benke's role. And when you do that, and it's an appointment, not an election, you only do it until the next election occurs. And so that is why we have 3. So how this works is that our 2 highest vote getters in the election would get the 3-year terms, And then the next highest vote getter would get the 1-year term to finish out Ed Banky's role. And then anyone after that would not be elected to the board. Very critical timing information. So I did share this with both Mr. Pridemore and Ms. Wilk when I met with them for their board meetings. But we did release the schedule for the winter break office hours. So we will be open on Monday, Tuesday of both weeks of winter break, since we have a 2-week break this year. So on December 22nd and 23rd and 29th and 30th, our offices here will be open. They will be staffed with regular office hours, so 8 to 4:30 p.m. Why is that important? Because the office will be closed on the 26th and the 2nd. The district is also closed on the 24th, 25th, 31st, and 1st. Those are holidays for our 12-month employees. So we will also have the office closed on the Fridays that follow those holidays. And again, it is important to note that because for our current incumbents, if you are choosing to run or if you are choosing not to run, we would greatly appreciate having your paperwork by December 23rd. And I've instructed Ms. Hoffman that if she does not have any paperwork, to please issue phone calls to you. Because if that paperwork, the non-candidacy paperwork is not in on the 23rd, then someone has to come and sit here on the 26th when the office is closed. And that is not going to make anyone very happy. So I am asking you, again, even though legally you have until the 26th, out of the kindness and holiday spirit, please turn in your paperwork on the 23rd. If we don't have paperwork in and someone is sad and sits in the office on the 26th, and we still don't have paperwork on the 26th, then the deadline to apply for any other individuals who are not seated on the board right now would be extended from January 6th to January 9th. So there is a lot of critical timelines here, and if anyone needs me to repeat or review anything with them later on, I'm happy to. I also will be speaking to Mr. Brownback when he's back from his vacation, so he's aware of the timelines as well. Along with school board updates, school board salary refusal is something that you are all paid for your role, and we appreciate that, but it's also almost a community service and providing support for the community and where you live and sometimes work. If you are interested in refusing your salary, we do need that in writing by December 1st. If you are not, you can disregard this. And then the state education convention will be held January 21st through the 23rd. We do have 3 of you registered for that. This is the one time during the year that the state school board, we have some school districts across the state where their entire board goes. So it's nice and exciting to have 3 of our 5 members go and participate. Louise Shrunk is our WASB delegate. And I did include the handout from WASB that shares what each of the sessions are and how they may be of interest to you. So I've marked up the entire catalog so that way you can see what's open to everyone, what's specifically for Louise as our delegate, and what you may be interested in, particularly given the work that we're doing with our school board goals. So that concludes my updates, unless you have any questions.
Any questions for Dr. Villalobos? Seeing none, then we're going to go to our discussion part of the evening here. And our first item is the Spotlight on Learning from the instructional coaches. So our 3 instructional coaches partnered with teaching staff to deepen and refine differentiation practices, tailoring instruction so all learners can access, engage with, and make progress on grade level goals. And I will turn it over to you guys. Thank you for coming. I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Melter. I'm sorry.
You won't hear from me long. I'm going to be turning it over, but I did want to say good evening and happy Thanksgiving week. What a great opportunity for us to share some gratitude for the impact that our coaches, along with our leadership team and our teacher teams, really have on student success. We're grateful for our mission at Hartford Joint 1, dedicated to the success of each student, which is why I'm very happy that you'll be hearing from the 3 of these individuals about differentiation or meeting the needs of all students, each student here at Hartford Joint 1. So I'm going to turn it over to Tasha Vogel at Rossman, Allison Stark at Lincoln and Mike Flynn at Central Middle School.
So I'm going to start off today by just talking about the school board goals and how they match what we are doing with our work, because we have been working very closely with all of our staff on differentiation. You're going to learn a little bit more about what our own personal development has been, as well as we learn more about differentiation and then share that with our staff. But as we're focusing on what this means for our board and our school, we are highlighting two of the board goals that were new in effect for this year, and that is develop well-rounded, future-ready students. This is truly applicable as instruction is tailored to our students and really setting the bar very high for our students and helping them grow. We want our students to continue to grow as we're looking at all of our data across the years of our students. The second one, which I feel that we are all being very passionate about as of late, is invest in people, recruit, retain, and develop excellent staff. And this is one way that we are doing that. Not only are we learning ourselves, but we're sharing that learning with our staff. And as we're sharing this with our staff, they are growing, and then in turn growing our students too. So tying into this, we're going to go into what is differentiation.
So what it is, and again, just to restate, this has been a focal point for each of us at each of our 3 buildings, and that we are looking to work with staff about how they differentiate instruction. And really what it is at its core is, if I'm thinking about this in simple terms, is meeting kids where they're at. It's about providing equitable access to all of our learners through different learning experiences. And so just to go from there, it's about modifying aspects of teaching. So whether it's content, the process, the product, or the environment, and it's really to accommodate student differences in readiness, interest, and their learning profiles. And we know that research shows that differentiated instruction supports student engagement, motivation, and learning success.
So together as a team, we have been learning and developing ourselves. We began this summer and continued throughout the beginning of the school year, reading a book called How to Differentiate Instruction in Academically Diverse Classrooms by Carol Ann Tomlinson. And we all worked together to reflect on how that book really outlines the overarching ways that differentiation can be implemented within all classrooms. And then Dr. Dickey came to speak with our staff in both August and October, and he was able to share his takeaways from Carol Ann Tomlinson's work and share more with our staff about differentiating the content, the process, and the products for the students. And as we'll learn about later, we took a poll from our staff and we asked them which of the 15 strategies that Dr. Dickey outlined were the most intriguing to them. And then we were able to create our Desserts and Differentiation event, which highlighted those strategies that our staff was most interested in learning about. Next, we engaged in a deep study in the most recent edition of the magazine, Educational Leadership. Tasha is our overachiever and she read 2 articles. Mike and I each read 1, but Tasha's articles really tied together, making the decision to teach up and a protocol for teaching up in daily instruction, which encourages teachers to look at the most advanced students in their classroom and plan their instruction for those students, and then support the rest of the students at their own levels so that they can access the same information. I read the article Thriving in the Zone of Productive Struggle, which highlighted the universal design for learning, and that really highlights featuring multiple ways to engage students, multiple modes of engaging students, and providing a variety of ways for students to show their learning. And Mike read 4 tools for doable differentiation, which highlighted 4 different ways that student choice can be incorporated into the classroom, and so that students can share their learning in those different ways.
So what we each did, and so at each of the buildings, we hosted a Desserts and Differentiation session, and it was based on the information that we gathered. So Dr. Dickey came and, as Allison said, provided us with some strategies, and they were kind of like a long list of quick things. And what we did is we asked staff, what would you be interested in? What's going to help you to customize some of your instructional practices? And then we use that information to sort of tailor some of the activities that we shared with staff. And so we sat down at lunch one day and then just talked through some of the strategies. And then from that, I was able to reach out or work with some of the staff about some of their particular needs and how we could differentiate instruction for their content area or for some of their particular students.
Allison and I both worked together with the desserts and differentiation at both Rossman and Lincoln. With Rossman, we had one grade level team that was able to attend as well as one of our speech teachers. So I made sure that I reached out with all of our staff through team meetings to ensure that they received all the information. And Allison and I worked together on a Friday and shared out with all the staff that had come to warm up their lunch, kind of bombarded. By the way, as you're here, here's some dessert and let's talk about differentiation. But some of the resources that we shared out are highlighted here. We looked at some anchor activities. So those students that are always done early, I have one in particular that I always picture. He was always done very quickly and looked at me, Mrs. Vogel, what do I do now? And I looked at him like, how about read a book? So we came up and brainstormed with a list of other ideas that we could do with those students instead of just reading a book. Some examples that we had shared would be a vocabulary activity where the kids would look at a vocabulary word for that content, look at the definition, have a picture, have a real world example that would tie into that. We looked at some other activities that geared towards reading. So be it compared to books from the same author or even books from the same genre, look at interviewing a different character. How can you look at things from a different perspective of a character? To writing activities, thinking beyond your regular writing tasks that you have, but get creative with your writing. Thinking about math, doing either fluency activities with dice, or even thinking of a real world activity like if you're traveling with your family, how much would it cost you? What is the miles? What is that going to look like? And then finally, just some other choice activities. For example, some art projects that might go hand in hand with the piece that you're working on, or even origami. In fact, one of our students was very excited about an origami book that he had. So not only was he reading, but he was crafting too. We also looked at some student choice activities and we went from low prep to high prep. Could go for something as simple as choice with where they're sitting to looking at choice boards. And Allison's going to share in just a moment an example that she had seen with one of their teachers. And then we also looked at bridging text to complex ideas. So we're trying to really take a text and either push our kids higher. So if we're having a text on plants, for example, how can we push those high kids even higher by giving them something a little bit more? Or how can we support those students that are struggling either with guided notes or a paired text that might be at a lower level, just to give them that same context, but again, give them that context that they need it. Just to share a couple of examples of how I've seen this work in our classrooms to date. As I mentioned before, we had a student that was looking at origami. So he was reading and then building on what he was doing by creating origami pieces. Number of the day activities, we've got a teacher that's looking at specifically a number of the day and decomposing it just to build that number sense. I have a teacher that has been working a lot with point of view activities. So she's been having her students look at, or they're reading about the perspective of one way that the story is written, but she's looking at, okay, what if this was written from a different point of view? What if it's written from a different character? How is that going to look? And how would that change the perspective of the whole book itself? And then even looking at the real world too. Hey, if you were on the playground and you saw this happening, do you know what's going on? So thinking about those real world activities too.
Thank you. One of our first grade teachers really took advantage of our time together, and she was inspired to choose one of the high prep ideas, which is a student choice board. So each week, students are given 5 different options of activities to complete during their guided reading time, and they can choose each day which activity they want to do, but throughout the week, they will accomplish all of them. So it really bridges the independence with accomplishing all of the tasks that the teacher has designed for them for the week. So looking ahead, Dr. Dickey will be joining us again in January at the elementary and middle school levels to be doing demonstration lessons. We have winter and spring desserts and differentiation events planned, and we will continue learning throughout the school year, including additional book studies, and we always look to support our commitments to student success. So thank you for your time. Do you have any questions for us?
I think it's great. I think
Thank
the
you.
challenge is, yeah, where do you meet every kid? It's always been a struggle. So to hear that we're actually acknowledging that there is levels
Mhm.
and really trying to help each kid, I really appreciate.
Along with that, I think it's great that we're offering this additional education for the staff and the teachers, because I think that there are students that are learning differently and needing different engaging ways of learning. And I think I would imagine that's very challenging for a teacher sometimes to create different pathways for the same classroom. So I think how did the desserts go over? in general?
Very well,
Okay.
very well. And teachers appreciated having ideas because, like you said, you look at your class and you look at the range of the skill ability and you're like, okay, what now? And we've got phenomenal staff. We're very creative, but then to get a list of additional ideas was really helpful so that they have validation in all of the things that they've already been doing and ideas to continue to grow as well.
Your teacher who did the 5 things, then is that being shared out to the rest of the teachers? Is it collaborative? Like other people can ask questions about it if they like that idea or?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. And so that was the first grade example. They do their weekly options. Second grade has a 2 or 3 week option where they've got more activities that they're able to choose from. And then each grade does it a little bit differently, but it's tailored to what's appropriate at that grade level.
I think that's what helps with the roles that we're in, because we have a little bit more flexibility with our schedules, that we can take the time to research a little more too. Talk to our teachers, talk about what they need, but that we can also give them different resources that they need to have in order to do this too. So
I think the only other thing I would like to see, as we always talk about collaboration with the students as well, do they have an option or a partnership in their feedback of, I really would like to, like you said, origami. It's like, you know, maybe there's something that the way they have to design or create something that their learning is different. There's something that they like. So I would like to obviously always make sure that the student also maybe has some choices of their own or can give suggestions on, hey, why can't we do this? So I just wanted to make sure that the student was also involved.
absolutely, and it's so important. And even as we're reading about different things, trying to get students engaged. I mean, let's be honest. If you were asked to write a paper about X and you have absolutely no interest in it, you're not going to put forth the effort. And however, if you're able to write something about something you're very passionate about, you're more willing to do it more. And a lot of our writing activities are tailor-made to give students choice of, you know, you've got an informational writing piece, you may make that choice. Even the reading side of it, choose the book that you get, or it is simply that choice piece of it. But I think we're continuing to expand on that as well in giving students that choice and that opportunity, which is really great about the menu boards too, because students have a lot more opportunity to be flexible in terms of the time. So maybe there's just a day that they just don't feel like doing X, but they can do Y instead.
Thank you. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Put it through.
Shake the hand.
Good job.
Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you.
Someone else yet?
I did, yes. However, you don't stay very long. Thank you. Thank you.
Nice to welcome. Nice to see you. Like too.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very exciting. Thank you for your questions.
I say they can stay.
You must stay.
You guys can all stay for the rest of the meeting if you'd like. Our next item is an administrative report on building and grounds, and Mr. Carroll, I'm gonna pass it over to you.
Okay.
Some updates.
Gonna give a little report. Give a quick report on building and grounds. November's a transition month for us. We got moved from lawn mowing to snow. We kind of watch the weather to determine when that is. This year has been a little different than past years. We have a couple added pieces of equipment, and we do not have to convert everything from grass to snow. So we have a lawnmower that we can leave as a lawnmower and it doesn't do anything with snow. So we can mow a little bit longer and we don't have to have that, hey, it's gonna snow next week, let's get stuff turned over. We still do have a piece of equipment that does do both lawn mowing and snow blowing. That's been converted. The new Toro, which only mows grass, has been put away. And the new Bobcat that we purchased, or you guys purchased, has some different implements. They're mostly snow removal equipment. So and those implements are very easy to change. They change within 5 minutes all by yourself. So it's not something that we have to plan a long time ahead for. So that kind of gives an update on the transition for mowing to snow blowing. Next thing we'll be in the process for is the holiday programs come. And that might be seem like something simple, but it gets a little chaotic for us. We have to move equipment from Rosman to Lincoln and back and forth, and the teachers want some stuff so they can practice on, and we only have so much equipment, but we get that there's enough time to get things moved around and we get things done. Centrals, the 2 elementaries are done during the day. Those are usually a little quicker setups and teardowns just because we need to continue to operate as a school. They have gym classes in those areas and we need to continue to do that. Centrals is more of a week-long process and they do their programs at night. They divide them up between band, orchestra, and chorus. I think 6th grade does all of theirs at once, so that's a little different for us. The next thing on my agenda is the winter break projects. We do work between Christmas and New Year's. Most of the things we do there are we do filter changes and we try to get into areas that are hard to access when we have kids. There's some certain projects that are just very difficult to get into classrooms when we have kids. So those are kind of things that we plan for that time. Unless we're blowing snow or removing snow, then it becomes we just can't get that done. And then we're going to be moving into before we know it'll be the end of the year, and we'll be looking at posting for summer help and getting that schedule put together because that's going to be a little bit different this year because of the installations of the new generators and scheduling that because some of the power will be down for short periods of time for each one of those. So if anyone has any questions.
Maybe when you guys do your walkthrough, like obviously
It's already done.
Yeah.
Okay.
We do that usually in October.
Okay.
That I think that's what we did.
Did we find anything concerning? I mean, obviously we've done renovations, so I'm hoping that.
No, there was, I mean, there's certain items that are just, they've probably been on the list for a little while. Nothing really out of the ordinary that I remember off the top of my head, but.
Next month, we're talk a little bit about that when Adam gives a bigger update on some of
Yeah, I
those
mean,
points too. Yeah.
One of the bigger reasons or one of the things we're trying to do there is not only just see the buildings, but we talked to all 3 principals about things they might want to enhance. Again, there was a portion of our budget that we set aside every year for things that they'd like to have done. So again, it's easy for us to get eyeballs on what those are. So we can kind of all agree what kind of shape it's in or what kind of the vision or idea is for doing any one of those projects that they have identified so that we can start putting pricing together and see what that actually looks like. So while we might see some things in disrepair and whatnot, kind of the bigger thing of what we're trying to do is again, start planning for like those summer projects.
And I think, correct me if I'm wrong or if I'm mistaken, but I think your question was more about were there any surprises or anything like that that we weren't aware of going into this? And I would say that there weren't any major surprises. The things that are going to be big ticket items that we'll hear about from Mr. Majerus next month have already been on the list. And so now that we have the referendum projects done or mostly done, now those will move into the forefront. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Doug. Item number 3 is a discussion about our accountability report cards for the schools and the district as a whole. A letter was sent to families on the day the scores were released. School districts are also required to publish educational options available to children residing in the district and to provide the performance category from the accountability report of district schools. A parent guardian letter will include the options, and a class one notice will be published in the newspaper as well. But Dr. Villalobos, I'm gonna pass it to you.
Thank you, Ms. Wilk. So on the board, you'll see the graphic that was sent out. And so this is a graphic I'm incredibly proud of. We had a core team of people, Ms. Eason, Ms. Malter, and myself worked on drafting the letter, but every single administrator had a hand in reviewing that letter. Mr. Ratschlag specifically helped us with data, and this graph, this chart that you're looking at right now is actually the work of Ms. Eason, so I have to give her the credit because this was tricky with the new score ranges. We wanted to be able to accurately reflect where we've been and what our journey is that we're on. And so we feel very proud about the graphic. And while I would say that the scores may be lower than we had hoped for, the chart shows that we are growing and that we are moving in the right direction. So I'm very proud of that and the work that everyone put in. And obviously, like I shared, the administrators each had a hand in putting the letter together. Ms. Hoffman had a hand in putting the letter together, but the students and staff did all of the work as well in terms of getting us where we are. So with the public school districts in the state, and there are 421 school districts. So my math is not wrong here, but the information that I shared said only 378 public school districts were scored. I don't know what the discrepancy is. But out of that 378, 355 school districts met, exceeded, or significantly exceeded expectations, and we are in that number. So we were part of that large proportion of districts in the state of Wisconsin, public school districts that met that. There are 436 private schools that were also scored. 161 of those met, exceeded, or significantly exceeded. So you can see that's a much lower percentage, as well as 247 were not scored due to insufficient data. So what does insufficient data mean? I can tell you that could be that it's too small to gather data, or that they have not had 3 years of data if it's a newer school. But the private schools clearly did not outperform, I would say, the public schools. So I'm very proud of the work that we did. And in the letter that all of you received, we also included specific celebrations for each of the buildings, as well as what we were committed to working on, so that way we can continue to grow. So I'm very proud of where we're at. And again, always looking to move that bar and continue the work. The next thing that I wanted to talk about was the administrative guideline revision, which is actually an omission. And so last month, you all adopted the policies that were presented to you. And one of the policies was our policy on controversial issues in the classroom. And because you adopted that policy, we no longer needed the guideline. And so rather than taking it out at the last meeting, hoping that you would pass everything, I waited until this meeting. So that's why this is coming alone and not with a large group of policies. So this is, again, just the omission of the guideline. And then the next thing, if you don't mind, I'll keep going on. Policy 8510 is the wellness policy. So this is something that Mr. Majerus and Ms. Flitter have been working on quite extensively so far. It's one of our Neola updates, and it is comprehensive. It's a very long policy. It's about 20 pages. And so because it's an existing policy, we only need to bring it to you for approval in December, but I'm bringing it to you this month. One, so that way if Mr. Majerus would like to share anything additional, he can. But two, because it's long, I wanted to draw your attention to it. Again, this is something that we should be addressing the wellness policy regularly. And if you remember last year, I stated that Neola completely revamped this policy. And so it took us time to go through it and to bring it to you. Mr. Majerus has put together a committee, and if one or more of you, we could have one or two of you, if you are interested in serving on this policy committee, it will be one, to look at the policy, but two, also to evaluate, are we doing the things that we say that we're committed to doing? So if you're interested in that, please let Ms. Hoffman or myself know, and we will convey that information to Mr. Majerus. There will be a meeting in the near future, likely before the December 15th meeting and potentially one after that.
Good.
Good. Okay. That concludes our discussion items tonight. Moving on to district business and action items. Action item number 1 is our policy second reading for 2431 interscholastic athletics. This policy was a first reading in October. It's included again in the packet. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve policy 2431. Interscholastic athletics.
I'll second. Any discussion?
Nothing has changed since we brought it to you in October. It's the same.
Great. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 2 is the authorization of the 2026 summer work crew job posting, which Mr. Carroll referred to earlier. Each year, the district hires a summer crew of high school and college students to do summer cleaning and maintenance work. These positions are limited term employment, usually 10 weeks, and full-time, so up to 40 hours per week. Because the wages are between $12.25 and $12.65 per hour, there are tremendous financial savings to the district. Do we have a motion?
I'll motion to approve the 2026 summer work crew job posting.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Don,
Aye.
Aaron,
Aye.
Louise,
Aye.
and I'll vote aye.
Motion carries. Item number 3 is the vote to free interagency agreement. This is an annual renewal agreement between Hartford Joint 1 and Washington County Birth to 3 program to work collaboratively to ensure a smooth transition of children from birth to 3 services to early childhood special education within the district. This is a county mandated program for children with disabilities. When a child reaches the age of 3, the school district is responsible for service delivery. Children must go through an evaluation and qualify for an educational disability in order to receive the services. If a child qualifies for special education services, we claim transfer out of the service cost. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve the 25-26 Head Start interagency agreement.
I'll second.
Any questions? This is something we renew every year. There's not changes to it. It doesn't look like.
Correct.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 4 would be our consent agenda. The consent agenda includes approval of minutes, bills, treasurer's report, and personnel recommendations. Is there any request to pull an item from the consent agenda? Seeing none, I would ask for a motion.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
May I have a roll call, please?
Aaron,
Aye.
Louise,
Aye.
Don,
Aye.
and I'll vote aye.
Motion carries. Item number 9 is your board meeting reflection and feedback. So that was from the last 2 meetings, right? So we have our annual meeting and then our regular board meeting on October 27th. All of that data was in our board packet. Don't forget to fill out your form tonight. And then item number 10 would be a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? He thirded, he didn't nay. All in favor, we are adjourned. Thank you.